Hello. All right, so for today's class, we're going to be jumping into a new topic. So for learning intention, we are learning to name angle pairs formed by parallel lines cut by a transversal. So we're focusing a little bit on standard AG5. Um, in order to be successful, or we have our list of success criteria right here. It says I will be successful when I can identify parallel lines, identify a transversal line, solve supplementary angles, solve vertical angles, solve corresponding angles, and solve congruent angles. So for the first part, we'll go through and then we'll attack some of the assignments. So the first thing that we're going to look at is identify transversal angles, okay? Transversal angles states that a line that crosses two parallel lines. Before we get into anything, I want to identify what two parallel lines look like. So two parallel lines, one could be that way, that those two lines are parallel, all right? Because they are beside each other in the same, going in the same direction. Um, these two lines are parallel. These two lines are parallel. So when it says a transversal angle is formed, a transversal angle is formed when a line crosses two parallel lines. So since we have two parallel lines here, if I draw a line crossing the two parallel lines, then this line right here would be considered my transversal line. And then within that, I created some transversal angles. I created all these different angles right here. So a transversal angle talks about a line that crosses two parallel lines. So if I go over here now, I could see that, there we go, I just created a transversal line leading to transversal angles. Oh, and another one. All right, so when we have two parallel lines, whichever way, they can be cut cross by a transversal line, creating all these different angles in here. All right. So one of the things we want to look at is supplementary angles. This is something we went over, but we want to highlight it and ensure that we understand fully what we're talking about. So when we create transversal angles, so with two parallel lines and we cut it with a transversal line, you realize that some of these angles are supplementary to each other. All right, so if I look at this one right here, say for instance that one, it's supplementary to this angle. So say this angle was 60, then this angle right here is 120. They're supplementary. They add up to equal 180 degrees. Also, if you look at this one, if this one right here is 120, then this one right here is 60. It's on a straight line. Okay, so we have that straight line going that way, but we also have that straight line going that way. Either way, the angles that are directly, like they're adjacent to each other, then they would be supplementary to each other because they add up to equal 180. The next thing we kind of want to look at are the exterior angles, and the exterior angles is really talking about the angles that are on the outside. So that right there is an exterior angle. That is an exterior angle. Right here is an exterior angle, and right there is an exterior angle. Okay, so all the angles on the outside are exterior angles. Also keep in mind that these two angles right here and these two at the bottom, they are supplementary to each other. All right, so you add them up and they equal to 180. So now let's look at interior angles, which refer to the angles that are on the inside. So that one right there, it's inside. That one is an interior angle, this right here, and that one right there. So we have four interior angles with this transversal that was created with these two parallel lines. So our interior angles talk about the ones that are on the inside, okay? Now our next one is vertical angles, okay? And we already talked about vertical angles, and those are the angles that are opposite angles, where opposite angles are equal to each other. So in this case, let's pull up a different color. This angle right here is equal to this angle right here. They're vertical angles, all right? Similarly, this angle is equal to this angle right here, all right? And if we should look for other ones, we could say this angle right here is equal to this angle, and this angle is equal to that angle, because they're vertical angles. Remember, vertical angles, once they're across from each other, they're equal to each other. The next thing we're going to look at is corresponding angles. This is one of our new ones that we're going to talk about. However, I'm going to draw some pictures so that you understand what we mean by corresponding angles. So on this first image, that angle would be the same as that angle. They're corresponding angles. This angle would be the same as that angle. Same with the other two. Can you guess what the last one is? Right, this angle right here would be the same as this angle. So when I say that, I mean if this angle right here is 20 degrees, this angle right here is 20 degrees. If this one right here is 160 degrees, this one right here is 160 degrees. Okay, that's kind of how you could look at these angles and technically figure out which angle is what. All right, if this one right here is 30 degrees, this one right here is 30 degrees. If this one right here is a cheeseburger, this right here, best believe it's a cheeseburger. All right. And then one of the last angles we're looking at is called alternating angles. Okay. So if I have an angle here, then it's equal to that angle there. All right. This angle right here is also equal to this angle right here. This angle right here is equal to that angle right there. And this angle right there is equal to this angle right here. If you realize that they're in the same position, it's just flopped around. For example, like this bottom one right here, this angle, yes, is at the top, but if you flip this angle around, it lines up directly with that bottom angle. So then they're alternating angles. All right, and when I say that, I mean this angle right here is 20, then this angle is also 20. If this angle right here is 50, then this angle right here is also 50. If this one is 60, this one is 60. Okay, so those are some different angles that we could go through. And again, we use two parallel lines and we cut it with a transversal line. All right, so just a quick example. If I have an angle, if I have two parallel lines and it was cut by a transversal, and I was given that this angle right here is 30 degrees. Just from looking at that, I already know that this angle right here is 30 because those are vertical angles. I could tell that this angle right here, the one that I just drew, that one is 150 because 150 and 30 makes 180, and those two angles are supplementary to each other, which makes this one 150 as well because it's vertical to that one. Okay, if I'm going to use alternating angles, I know that that one is also 30 because this one right here is 30. This angle is 30. So this angle is 30, alternating angles. Or I could have taken a corresponding angle view. So this one right here is 30. So this one would be 30. And then you could go through and figure out the rest. This is 30 because of vertical angles. This one right here is 150 because of supplementary angles. And then again, this one right here is 150 because of vertical angles. So that's how I could go through and figure out ideally what all these different angles are. All right, and if we want to extend this a little bit more, if we throw in a little bit of x in there. So we say this one is x plus 2, and this one is 3x. I could use that and form an equation. They're vertical angles. All right, so I could say 3x is equal to x plus 2. 3x is equal to x plus 2. And then you could go in and figure out what x is and then put it in and solve for it. But then you could go in and figure out what the other angles are. All right, this is just a quick video on how we can create transversal angles using two parallel lines and a transversal line. Remember, we have the two parallel lines and then the line that cuts cross is considered the transversal. Okay, that line right there is the transversal line. Anyway, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Let's go back to our success criteria. If we look at this, we realize that we want to be able to identify parallel lines. We want to be able to identify a transversal line, but also be able to solve supplementary, vertical, corresponding, and congruent angles while we are dealing with all this transversal. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and we'll work some of the questions. Let me know if you have any questions about any of this.